Hi everyone, it's Plastic EP coming in from Melbourne, Australia. Let me tell you, we've got a very special VIP guest. We've got Malcolm McDowell. How are you today, Malcolm?
Things are good here. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Just call me Plastic.
Well, congratulations, Plastic, on your 900 shows, man. That's pretty amazing. You must have had a great cross section of guests in that time, I would have thought.
I did, and I've had a lot of Beatle people. I've had a lot of celebrities. I'm just like Bobby Rydell. He passed away, unfortunately. Mary Wilson from the Supremes. She passed away, unfortunately.
You know, I went with her to the 25th anniversary of Motown, where Michael Jackson did the first moonwalk. And I was with Mary Wells because I was going to do a movie with some director. I never did the movie in the end, but he took me. We picked up Mary Wells and we went down. I think it was in Anaheim or somewhere. It was just outside LA. And wow, it was just amazing to see Michael Jackson, this young kid, you know. And I'll never forget, he threw his hat just like that, you know, zipped it. And it went right across the stage and landed on a peg. I mean, 1 in 100, but it landed, you know.
Just give me a couple of your favorite Beatles songs, 2 or 3, and why you like them.
Oh my God. I tend to like John's more dour, more sort of fun songs. But of course, you know, let's face it, Paul McCartney's a genius, you know, whichever way you cut it. It's funny, I had to introduce Peter Asher the other day recorded it, you know, and sent it off. But it was like, well, you know, he shared this attic at the Asher's household with Paul, and they had like bedrooms at the top of the house because, of course, Paul was seeing Jane, you know. And, you know, Peter and Gordon had like 3 #1 hits, all written by you know who. So I said, what did you do? Just bang on the wall and say, hey, I've got Mozart sleeping next to me. I may as well get myself a good song, you know. Hey, what have you got, Paul? You know. John was a very complex individual, way more complex than, well, we're all complex, of course, but I think he, you know, had huge chips on his shoulder because of his, you know, family stuff and all that, which was sort of understandable. But I love talking about Plastic Ono Band. That's one of my favorite albums of all time. I just love that album. I just love the fact that John puts it all out there. It's raw emotion, and the vulnerability is staggering, you know. And I love that about John. I think and I think he had one of the great rock and roll voices too. And by the way, when I went to see them when they were called the Silver Beatles, honestly, it's mainly John that I remember because it was his group, you know, that time, sort of. And I remember and remember his. They were only doing covers. I don't remember them doing one of their original songs at all, but the covers, you know, Long Tall Sally and all these Chuck Berrys and Little Richards. John's song, his voice was incredible. So was Paul's, but I remember John mostly from those days. I think it was, you know, kind of around him more. I think that when Paul was, you know, writing some just great songs, he started to be, you know, the front man. And in fact, Paul kind of took over the whole thing when John was out of it, you know. And in fact, you know, Peter Jackson's documentary is kind of interesting because really it's all Paul. He kept it all together, you know. But, you know, he was going to write the music for a movie I did. My 3rd movie it was called The Raging Moon. It was from a story by Sheila Delaney, who had written A Taste of Honey. And Paul told me this years later, they went up to Scotland where he was. This was in 1969, I guess. So the Beatles had literally just broken up. And I saw Paul, and he said, "I like that film. I'm sorry, I was so out of it. I was just on the piss. I was getting drunk. It was just the Beatles had just come to an end. I just couldn't do it, But I love the film. Love the film. It was great, But probably just said that, but it was a pity. I was hoping he'd do it,
That's fantastic. And you know what? Beatle fans all over the world have got to thank you so much for doing that documentary, the narration of the complete Beatles in 1982. Everybody has that VHS tape, and I've got it too. It's one of the greatest documentaries out there.
I'm so glad you said that, because honestly, I thought it was really good. And well, you can't get it in the States. It's impossible to find it. People have asked me. Somebody told me that changed the way the narration in these things became much more gritty after that. I wanted to do a real, hard-boiled kind of the same thing that they did, but in a narration kind of thing. I don't remember much about it, except that I did feel that it was slanted rather towards Paul, and I went, well, hey, wait a minute, I don't want to say this. And so I had a bit of a barney with the director at the time, and there's a bit of a standoff. And I went, well, just get another actor then to do it. Oh, no. We'll work it out, So I can't remember what it was, but I know it was kind of too much kind of anti-John for my taste. I didn't like it. It kind of went against my grain. I didn't want to say it, But then I found that I think Paul had got money in it or something. So he paid for it. So, obviously things are slanted more his way. But of course, John had gone. I think I must have done this thing in around 82, I think.
Yeah, that's right. 82, that's what I said. And I like the way you said, we can work it out. Same title from the Beatles song. And I want to tell you, Ivor Davis has said to me, I can't get the show, The Complete Beatles, with Malcolm doing the narration. I said, no worries. Most of it's on YouTube. So I've been sending him chapter by chapter of the show. And he said it's brilliant.
It's on YouTube, huh?
Yeah, there's chapters of the actual. Brilliant. Yeah, there's chapters there that people are seeing.
All I remember saying is Liverpool, an industrial town in the northwest of England. And because I'm from Liverpool, so, at the time, listen, not only did the Beatles put Liverpool on the map, they changed everything. They changed the whole social structure in England, and therefore the rest of the world followed. America followed. I know that the Aussies were nuts for them. They went, in fact, they were more crazy for the Beatles than pretty much any town outside of Liverpool.
That's true.
They absolutely, they loved them. And there was something about them. There's an irreverence, a great sense of humor, a fuck you, and it was so needed at the time. And, I know people have said that in the States, they were ready to receive them after the malaise that they'd been in after the assassination of Kennedy. And that's probably true. They needed something to, and there were these cocky lads who were very funny and very irreverent, and also sang these fantastic tunes. They were really fantastic. Even I love the early ones. Please me. It's a fantastic tune, and it just, there'd been nothing like that.
This song was released in America. It didn't do anything, but it was released later again, and well, it's doing something, So, this, it is. So we'd like to play for you now a song called Please Please Me.
you know, and suddenly, wow, optimistic, you know, great beat, great dancing things, and then you know they really got into their stride. You know, I guess Rubber Soul was the you know the key. I think that's such a great album. You know, but there's something for everyone on every single album they did, and you know, Paul's still writing great songs. You know, he's a pretty amazing guy, really. And when you think about it down the line, you know, in 200 years, will they be remembered? And I definitely think yes, they will be remembered.
Yep.
I think music will always be remembered, like Beethoven is remembered, and you know.
Exactly, Malcolm. I'm just going to say, in 1964, they played here in Melbourne. If you go on YouTube and you type in the Beatles 1964 Festival Hall concert, it's one of their greatest concerts. And I've got to tell you, when they landed here in Melbourne, they landed at Essendon Airport, right, which is miles out of Melbourne. And it was lined with people in the street. And about 80,000 people watched 5 Beatles on the Southern Cross balcony because Jimmy Nicol was doing the tour with them and Ringo had joined them. So there was 5 of them. In Adelaide, I've got to say, 300,000 people turned out for the Beatles.
Jeez, I mean, it's like, you know, the Aussies also love Liverpool FC, which is my team. So I know that they go crazy when Liverpool show up, but that's so great, you know. Well, I supported them because my father took me to Anfield all those years, way before them. But yeah, it's amazing. You know, it's amazing having seen them, you know, at the Cavern. I had a girlfriend who said, you got to come see this group, you know. And I didn't realize, but, you know, they played the Cavern over 300 times.
Yeah.
They were playing lunch times. And I mean, no wonder they were so together. I mean, that band was unbelievable. As one, they were amazing. I think they did 2 tours, didn't they, in Germany, in Hamburg? 8 shows a day, a night. 8 shows. So no wonder they could do an album in a day. You know, show up at EMI. The first album takes a day. John says, I'll do some twist and shout at the end because of my voice. And he kills it, man. He kills it.
He was sucking on Zoobs, they reckon. Those Zoobs.
Yeah,
he said, without them, I couldn't do it.
Come on, baby, now, come on, baby.
this documentary, even in 1982, as I said, people are becoming aware of it because it's such a fascinating and real documentary could actually buy that existed. So that's like the Holy Bible of Beatles documentaries that you did. You did a fantastic job. I listened to it all the time, and it said the narration is world class.
Oh, well, thank you. Appreciate that. Well, I love them, they were partly responsible for me being an actor. But the funny thing was, I went to this elocution teacher at the Crane Theater, Crane Building, which is around the corner from the cavern. Went and saw this woman. She was 82, called Mrs. Harold Ackerley. And I went and got rid of my Scouse accent. And as soon as I get rid of it, of course, and then I go to London as an actor, and they're going, "I thought you were from Liverpool. We want the accent." The Beatles have made it so popular. Everybody was supposed to do a Scouse accent, and I just paid all this money to get rid of mine. So I quickly affected it, but I didn't do any Liverpool parts. It was really.
I want to show you an album of Please Please Me that I picked up, right? Now,
yeah.
It's a mono version,
Yeah.
right?
That's
now, on the back,
yeah.
it's got some writing. Now, what it says is, it said to Gary, good listening, and it says John with 3 dots in the middle, Liverpool, and at the bottom, he's marked Twist and Shout with a biro. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if it's real or not. I've had people say it's fake. I've had people tell me it could be real. But is that amazing that somebody wrote a message and they wrote John Liverpool?
I wonder who was it, Gary Marsden?
I watched the Ivor interview, and I say you got the greatest sense of humor that I've ever heard or seen. You really get it.
Thanks. Thank you. Yeah, well, that's Liverpool. All the comedians in England come from Liverpool, the good ones.
Yeah.
And the Beatles, look at the sense of humor that they had. How did you get to New York? Turn left at Greenland. They're just so quick and fun and, not taking it too seriously.
What do you think of their movies, A Hard Day's Night and Help? I'm just asking.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And a director was directed by Dick Lester, who I did a movie with and was a friend. And his thing was, when I pass, my obituary, of course, will be the director of the Beatles films. I said, yeah, but, Dick, that's quite an achievement because they were kind of amazing. And a lot of people throughout the world, that's how they first learned of the Beatles, through these movies, and they were fun. I mean, listen, they weren't pretentious. But the Beatles weren't pretentious, and some of the songs that they did, Help. I mean, that is such a great song that John came up with. And, of course, he was really saying, help. But the way it's played in the movie and all the rest of it, it's just a great upbeat song. It's a terrific composition.
I need somebody help, not just anybody. I need someone help. When I was younger, so much younger than today, I never needed anybody's help in any way. But now these days are gone, I'm not so self-assured. Now I find I've changed my mind and opened up the door. Help me if you can, I'm feeling down, and I do appreciate you being around. Help me get my feet back on the ground. Won't you please help me?
I love Dear Prudence too. There's so many things, and Dear Prudence and the change. I think Paul started out being the drummer because the Ringo had left in a huff, but came back to do the last third of it. And the whole drum thing in that Dear Prudence changes. It's really kind of bizarre, but art is sometimes a happy accident, as my friend Lindsay Anderson used to tell me. And it's true. You don't really, you think it's part of the thing, And it is part of the thing. It's organically part of it. So it wasn't planned, but it works just fine.
And the Beatles were big fans of the James Bond films. Now, those films, everyone that came out, everybody in the United Kingdom, that was like their, how can I say, that was their answer to anybody that they had in America. He was like the ambassador of the UK. Every time a film came out, James Bond, and I'm sure you've been to a few of the
I love
openings of it. Everybody loves James Bond. It's just iconic with the UK. It's like hand in hand.
You know, and seeing Sean, who was absolutely brilliant. He was such a remarkable, he was a good actor, but a great film star. I think his charisma was extraordinary. He was really, he was a tough old Scot, you know. He sure was.
Hey, did your paths ever cross?
Oh, yeah. They did, you know, because we all had the same agent. I'll tell you a story. We had the same agent as Michael Caine, Sean Connery, Roger Moore, Peter Sellers. Now, Peter Sellers kind of cottoned on to me a bit because, as he said to me, you know, Malcolm, we're in a very exclusive club. We both starred in Stanley Kubrick movies. So we had that going. And so if there was ever a dinner, you know, that the agent had to take Peter out, he'd ask for me to go. And so I got to go to these great dinners, you know. But Peter was, you know, he was hot and cold, and he just, you know, he had this big problem, you know. He was bipolar. Exactly. So we'd get to the restaurant, and his face and his head would be on a plate, just down there. And, you know, and I knew, just leave him. He'll come when he, you know, I knew that about him. And so we'd just get on. And the agent was called Dennis Sajinger. He was a very nice man. And we'd just get on with it. And then, you know, suddenly Bing and Peter would come back in. Well, Dennis Salinger, he had this sister called Rhoda, and it was her 70th birthday, and he got all the A-list clients in the private room at Julie's restaurant. And we all go there. I'm sitting next to Peter because they shoved me next to him, right? He's doing his usual thing. His head's down, nothing. He's not. And I'm talking to a producer next to me, and there's Michael Caine and all the actors. And suddenly, one of the women on the other side of the table jumps up and says, "Oh, my diamond stud fell on the floor. I can't. I must have dropped it." And suddenly, everyone's like, "What?" And it was a big diamond stud, you know. And suddenly, Sellers comes to. He went around, did 20 minutes of stand-up as Clouseau, accusing everybody of stealing the diamond. And it was, I mean, I looked over at one point at Michael Caine. He had tears running down his cheeks. It was total, absolute genius. It was like you were watching Charlie Chaplin. It was so incredible.
You've got some fantastic stories in your lifetime. And as I said, it's like your career has gone up, up, and up. And I mean, a lot of people just now are discovering your movies and your catalog of movies, all this new generation of fans. Like even now, they'll find out about your movies. They'll find about the complete Beatles. And also, I've got to say, I just had a relative come from Germany, and she's at that university where they filmed the movie A Clockwork Orange, where they got the police scene with one of the university buildings. And she's showing me photos, and she says, that's from the movie.
Brunel University.
She works there.
No, it's in London.
She works there. She's big up there. And she showed me the photos. As soon as I said, I'll be interviewing you. It's a small world.
Yeah, it is a small world. Sure enough. Yeah, that's wild. Well, you know, I've been around a long time, and all careers are peaks and valleys. But, you know, so if you know, I'm not being offered any movies that I like, I'll go do a play, or I'll do an ad. I did a great ad with James Earl Jones for Sprint. You know, we're in tuxes and read out these banal texts that people were sending. I mean, it was really hilarious. You can get them on YouTube. It's really fantastic, and unfortunately, it didn't carry him on enough because Sprint got bought out by this big corporation from Japan. I think bought him out. But yeah, I'll do. You know, I enjoy myself. I've just done my first Western. I'm so happy to have done it. It's so much fun, you know. But it was great. It's actually a very charming movie. This guy has been drummed out of England, out of a school, a public school, for striking the headmaster. And so he decides to go to the new world, and he applies and he gets a job as the schoolmaster in the little town of Fortune. It's a frontier town, and it opens with him at this tiny building with these rail tracks, and he's going, "My good man, you know, are you sure that," he said, "that I told you that the train had left at 12:05?" And I went, "But this man who brought me here said it was 1:05. He goes, "Oh, it must have been old Wiley." And I go, "Oh, yes, Wiley, I believe that was his name." He goes, "Oh, yeah, he's crazy. You know, don't take it." He said, "The next train is in a week." So it literally, and shuts the thing, and that's it. And he's got two suitcases, one with some clothes and the other one with all his books, Shakespeare and Dickens and all the great masters that he loves, and quotes. He's got verbal diarrhea, this character, I'll tell you. Anyway, at that moment, this gunslinger guy comes, robs him, and pistol whips him a bit, and then, but this Cecil Peachtree's he names, he goes, "Excuse me, sir, could I ask you, would it be at all possible for you to guide me? I make it very well worth your while, even though you've stolen everything I have at the moment, but when I get to Fortune," it's called The Last Train to Fortune, "I have a stipend, and I'd be very happy to turn it over to you." And so he goes, I don't give a shit about that. And he goes, "No, I know. And listen, I'm sure, you know, you've got better things to do. And right in the middle of your business day, I can see," and all this kind of anyway, talks the guy into taking him. And it's like The Odd Couple from here on in until they get there, but they go through, and it's so much fun. It was great. I love doing it.
Amazing. Now, I've got to take you back to the 60s, to 1967, just before the Beatles released Sgt. Pepper. I'm just saying, in London, that scene there, like Austin Powers, these movies that came out, I mean, that was the cultural centre of the world. You were in London in 67, Malcolm?
Yeah.
What was that like before the launch of Sgt. Pepper?
I mean, first off, you know, the mini skirts and the girls and the dolly rockers. Oh my God. You always allow, after you'd always let them go up the steps first. But it was amazing. It was amazing. And, you know, the whole scene with the music and stuff. Of course, you know, I knew about the Beatles before then because I'd seen them in '62. So I knew all about them. And then I was a coffee salesman in Yorkshire, and a policeman, I tried to get back to my digs in Leeds, and there were police barricades. And I rolled down the window. I said, "Excuse me, sir, but what is happening? I mean, why I can't get back to my," and he goes, "No, there's a groups here called the Beatles. They're causing all this kind." And I went, "The Beatles from Liverpool?" He goes, "I don't know where they're from. They're a bloody nuisance." And it was them. They had just really started to take off big time. But I was at I went to the Empire in Liverpool, which is like a 2,000 huge theater. And I saw them there, I guess, before they'd really made it big, but they filled it. And it was just the start of all the girls screaming. I mean, it was hypnotic. It was like a drug, you know, that you couldn't hear the boys. I mean, I wanted to hear them, you know. And I think they had Klaus Vormann with them. He went on stage and did a couple of numbers, but they played for like maybe an hour and a half, you know, and it was great. But just a whale of screams from start to finish. It was crazy, and that's how every single concert was.
Amazing.
I'm sure in Melbourne they must have gone. The screaming there must have, you know, could be heard in Sydney. I'm sure.
You must have met some of the greatest and most beautiful actresses in your time. I'm just giving an example, like Raquel Welch, like the British actresses. Yeah. How great was it? And who did you know during that period of the 60s?
The one I absolutely adored was the girl who starred in If with me. My first movie was Lindsay Anderson's If, which was a very good way to start your film career. And I kind of fell in love with her, but she wasn't. She was, you know, from the East End of London. And I'd say, you know, should we go out and have a coffee? You know, she'd go, why? Why would I want a coffee with you? And I go, I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm a handsome fellow, have a great sense of humor, not much money, but, you know, we can make up for that. And she went, no, I don't think so. And this is how it went on the whole time. It's quite funny, really, but I did kind of adore it. I met all the, you know, the Sarah Miles and Susanna Yorks and Helen Mirren. I knew quite early on. And she was always, I mean, she was at Stratford at 18. Very, very beautiful girl. And look at the great career she's had. I'm so happy for her because she's always been an amazing talent.
I got to ask you, did you come across Twiggy or Lulu?
Yes. She was so.
Tell me.
Something Hornby. Yeah, I knew her then husband. The actor guy, I can't remember his name now. I met him through, we spent a few nights up at their place in Hampstead with my old friend. I was doing a play, Entertaining Mr. Sloan, with Ronnie Fraser, a real scallywag, a big drinker. Then we'd go to Twiggy's and hang. She was a delightful girl and very talented. You know, she did The Boyfriend, and she did really well.
And I just want to thank you so much for being on the show, Malcolm. The world loves you, and you're just the greatest.
Plastic, so are you, man. What is this mural you've got behind you?
Okay, that's a psychedelic picture there. That's like
really?
Screen.
Are you passing around mushrooms? Is that what you're doing?
No, you're cracking me up.